Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox on this Wednesday night, and the coastal fire continues to burn in and around Laguna Niguel and also Laguna Hills. Right now, though, we're just a little bit after the top of the hour. We want to bring in our friend of the program, Hal Kempfer. We usually talk to him right at this time about the war in Ukraine. We're going to hold off on some of those updates. We want to get his opinion. He has experience in emergency management. Hal is on the line with us. Hal, thanks for being with us. What do you make of the operation so far, of the firefighting efforts? Remember, we were hearing that initially they did not think this was going to be so big as it is, this conflagration right now that has really taken multiple homes, many multi-million-dollar homes up in flames. And so you kind of heard from the fire chief there in Orange County, they didn't think it was going to get this bad.
Well, Andrew, and I should mention I was a emergency preparedness liaison officer for Department of Defense. And at one time, I think I was the closest officer in that status to Laguna Beach, Laguna Niguel, that area. And I've worked fires down here. What happened this afternoon was they had a fire that was down low, and then the winds came in heavy this afternoon. I'm not that far away. We had huge windstorms throughout Southern California. And the problem is everything's so dry. So it's just kindling. So the winds pick up, the fire gets to the edge of those hills, and it'll just fly up those hills. And the biggest problem they have is cinder. They get these cinders that fly out. They're really like cinder storms. And they'll get in and around buildings. They'll get under garage doors. They'll get in eaves. They'll get everywhere, any crack they can find. And once they get in there, that's your ignition source. And that's how you have these homes go up in flames. And there's an interesting thing. It happens other places, but particularly in Southern California, because of the unique vegetation, the winds, and the way these things hit. And of course, some homes are better prepared for this than other homes. Some homes don't have some of the things that are very unique to Southern California for fire defense. And you'll see one home standing, and right next to it, there'll be a home that was burned to the ground. And it's a degree of preparedness, but a little bit of luck as well. So that's what happened this afternoon. The winds have died down a lot. This will give them a chance to get their hands around the situation. It sounds like they've got really good mutual aid from surrounding counties that are willing to send in resources. One of the things, and this is kind of a little bit due to climate change, it used to be that they would do everything on the ground before they bring in air, meaning like aerial tankers, could be helicopters doing what we call bucket operations, where they dip into a water source like a lake or something, and then they go up with this big bucket, fly over the water, and then drop water on it. Used to be that was later, after they try to attack from the ground. Anymore, they will push the air support in faster because they realize they've just got to get a handle on this thing as fast as possible, because once it gets big, it's very difficult to stop. And that whole area up there, it has beautiful homes. It's very developed, but there's also up in those canyons, there's just a tremendous amount of dry brush or fuel, if you will. And they want to stop this fire as much as they can, stop those cinders, attack those cinders to make sure they're out, so the fire doesn't keep spreading up all the way throughout that whole uneven terrain, if you will, throughout that entire area.
Yeah, of course, Hal. I think a lot of our viewers, myself included, have learned a lot about how these fires move, how they start, the weather patterns that need to be just right for blazes like this to kick off. And you're right. I was also struck by the fact that, this is somewhat intermittent with the homes that are burning. It could, one next door could be spared. The other three next to it could not. So it does seem to be intermittent in that respect, and that is just, like you said, possibly luck. We also know that the operations in the air, Hal, are so precise as they dropped, and we saw it, the retardant earlier on, right as the blaze was kicking off. That was interesting to me. They're still in the air. Not much has been contained so far. You're watching some of our Fox 11 reporters in the field. We hope to speak with some of them a little bit later. But Hal, from just a firefighting effort, how have they done? Have they done everything right?
From what I can tell, they're, I'm sure internally they would critique themselves, but it looks like they've done everything they can do. There is a certain amount of, Mother Nature is going to do what Mother Nature does here. And even with the immense resources they have, once the fires hit that dry brush and you got those tremendous winds behind them, it's very difficult to slow it down. In fact, in many cases, it's almost impossible. And really what they look for, yes, they try to save property, but they're really looking to save lives. And so they're working simultaneous operations. They're trying to obviously attack the fire, but they're also trying to evacuate people out of there as fast as possible. You have to remember, California, we have had some pretty horrendous fire incidents. Santa Rosa some years back, where I think over 20 people were killed in an area that couldn't get evacuated fast enough. And of course, Paradise up in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas, where almost 90 people were killed in a fast-moving firestorm. So let's just say there's a lot of impetus to save lives out here, and you're seeing a lot of that. One thing you're going to see, they're going to try and, it looks like they're doing air operations at night. Those are always much more risky than air operations during the day because of lower visibility, not just because it's dark, but also all the smoke in the air makes it very difficult. It wasn't that long ago that they wouldn't even allow air operations at night because of the risk involved. But now they try to do stuff as long as they can, and it makes a huge difference. So I think they're going to work really hard while the winds are lower tonight to really get a handle on this fire, because they know tomorrow morning, it won't be too long into the morning that the winds will start to pick up, and they want to keep this fire as small as possible.
Hal, I want to get the opinion, I guess, or move the discussion to, people who build homes and choose to live there. They know what they're getting into. We've heard a lot from Fox 11, their meteorologists. This is always a risk, and these homes, where they are situated, are vulnerable. Of course, I would imagine many of these homeowners have insurance, but going forward, what recourse do they have? Because this came in so quickly. Do they, have any recourse, say, at the state level, at the federal level? Will, an emergency disaster declaration be signed? Do you think it's going to get to that point?
I think you'll probably see that. I think more typically what happens is the state will declare a disaster, and then they'll appeal to the federal government for the president to declare a disaster under the Stafford Act, and that way FEMA funds can be allocated to help with this, and that helps with rebuilding. Interesting, there's been a lot of discussion about some of these areas where these homes are located. Some of these areas keep getting hit over and over again. This particular area, I don't think has been hit for probably a couple of decades, if not more. But certainly areas around that have been hit more recently. I recall very close to there back in '93, there was a massive fire that went through that area. And that actually, I think they changed some laws after that because of the extent of the damage. They're going to take a look at this. Back east, going back many years, there were certain storms, along the coast of the Carolinas and stuff, you have these Outer Bank islands that are right on the water, and people build homes there. Hurricanes that come in, they wipe out the homes. And it was getting to be a fairly regular thing. And finally, FEMA, years back, turned around and said, look, we're not going to go in and put disaster aid to these areas. If you build a home, you're on your own. And that curtailed a lot of home building on the Outer Banks out there to avoid putting homes in harm's way. That's been talked about here in California with some of these homes on what they call the wildland interface, where they're right next to this brushy wildland area that typically catches fire on a regular basis. And that actually is part of the Western ecosystem that, these things do catch fire. Yeah. And they obviously catch fire more often. So I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be a change, but it's not a change that's right now.
Last point I want to make before we move on to some of these other headlines tonight. Let's talk about who was evacuated, where they are, and we heard from the Orange County Fire Authority chief that he said this was one of the most orderly evacuations that he has seen because homeowners, residents, they need to leave at a moment's notice. They don't have much time. They have to collect the essentials, and then they have to get out of harm's way. And so we don't really have an idea of how many, I believe, have been evacuated or are in some of these evacuation centers. But what is that like for them and for fire officials to wrangle people at a moment's notice?
Well, they're pretty good at wrangling out here. They can do reverse 911 where they call the homes. Of course, one of the challenges there with people don't have that many hard lines in their homes. They kind of rely on cell phones now. But they will also drive up these streets. The sheriff's deputies will normally do that in that area and knock on doors, and they will make sure that people get out. And frankly, when you know there's a fire in the area, it's very typical that you'll pack a bag or have a go bag ready to go. In fact, that's something that's trained down here to residents in Southern California. Keep a go bag ready if you can, because you never know. These things will happen fast, particularly during fire season. And they'll throw the stuff in their car, grab their pets, whatever else they got, and they'll head down the road. Now, as far as this particular area, I don't know how many of those people are going to shelters. All right. That area is a little more affluent than some of the other areas of California. So I'm thinking they're heading down the road to probably a very nice hotel, and they're going to wait it out down there. So it's a little bit different than some other areas of California, but that would be my guess. It doesn't look like they had to evacuate that many people either. At least right now, I'm sure it's much larger than just the 20 or 30 homes would suggest, because they have to back it off a lot. But that's not, frankly, for Southern California, that's not unusual at all.
Yeah.
To evacuate something like that. So they have shelters set up, but I think a lot of these people probably just grabbed their credit card, went down the road, and got a hotel room for the night.
Yeah, of course, we heard from those fire officials at the press conference that fortunately, not many people were home at the time, they said, about the houses in harm's way.